Steve Bannon, always good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, Sean. How you doing? Are you commander? Are you captain now? Rear admiral?
Oh, that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay.
Still a commander, but we'll talk offline about that.
Okay.
I want to get into a lot of stuff today with you, but I want to just take you back for a second for 2016 before we move ahead in the future.
Sure.
When you look back at the campaign and especially those first few days of the White House, knowing what you know now, what do you think we did really well, and what would you do differently?
It's a great question. Never thought about it. I thought what we really did well is obviously in a comfort behind victory. We kind of pulled it off, as you know, with 15 people, airplane and a can. I mean, there was nobody. And I think that lesson you see in what Heritage is doing and what Russ Vought's organization is doing is that you got to prep, the 3,000 the 3,000 folks you can put in right away. To land on, the beach lanes that you don't need Senate confirmation, or the 4,000 you have, 3,000. I think it's to get those trained up and all be in sync on policy and get the best people you can. You don't need actually the best and the brightest. You need the best that are available that understand what the program is. And I think President Trump, and I think what we didn't do, Sean, in hindsight, is maybe be hard enough. I mean, it's some of these, like building the wall and the deportation, stopping it, that we now know that those things you have to do with a certain a sense of urgency and focus and toughness to make sure that they actually take place. So I think that's the lesson I learned.
It's funny
that a lot of people are working on it. Huge teams now are working on it.
So tell me if you agree with this or not. I sort of had this feeling, okay, we won. You guys may not like us, but you have to execute the president's agenda. And I think as we saw the years go by, we realized a lot of these people, both some of actually that were appointed by the president, but a lot of folks that are part of the administrative state basically said, no, we're just going to wait you out. You think that's fair? And that's why we need to make sure that the 3,000, 4,000 people that would staff a Trump administration would come in and understand you may not be the smartest guy in the world, but you understand the mission.
Remember what we used to call it was the nullification project. I mean, it was only later in the development of Russiagate and the House hearings and the Nunez report, we realized the depth of it. But you're absolutely correct. I mean, they tried to stop Trump winning the presidency, but then it was to nullify the presidency. And I've never been one to throw around the term deep state loosely, but the administrative state, this fourth branch of government that feels they're impervious to elections. That's what I mean. I don't know if we were tough enough, and I don't think we understood the depth. And I agree with you. You would think that, look, anytime a president in the Oval Office says to do something, there has to be follow-up. There has to be people on it. But as you know, the very first weekend that you were there, we did those phone calls. The things were leaked to the Washington Post, which had never happened in history. And you were a naval officer and knew about security clearances. We actually did phone calls with, I think, the president of Australia and the president of Mexico on that Sunday afternoon. And they were in the New York, I think they were in the Washington Post front page on Tuesday morning. The transcripts had been leaked. And so I think that level, I don't think anybody was prepared for the level that the administrative state would say, no, we're still running the government. And
but the thing is, I thought it was more than the administrative state. There were days in which, as well as I do, the president would make a decision. Then you talk to some of the people that were appointees that were sort of like, well, we're not going to fully execute that. And I think that's why, to your point about these projects that Russ Vogt and Heritage and America First are leading,
a lot of people that were appointed by the president, brought in by the president, just sat there and goes, no, that hasn't been thought through. We've got another way to do it. Just for your audience, there's 4,000. So the federal bureaucracy, I think, is 2.1 million people. You got another couple of million in the military, so it's about 4 million. But then you got 16 to 18 million contractors. So the entire apparatus is about 20 million people. Your political appointees are 4,000, of which 3,000 can go day one, don't need any confirmation, and another 1,000 Senate confirm. You have to have those 3,000 ready now. And that's why I think.
So, but the funny thing, Steve, is the president, according to a statement that his team put out, Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, said, hey, nobody is acting on my behalf. And I don't think that Russ or Heritage or any of those folks are acting on his behalf. They're just sort of saying, we'll do the spade work for you. Do you think that President Trump appreciates and understands the work that's being done to not say you have to hire these people, but these people are ready for you?
I'm not sure he understands right now. We keep a copy of the book right here in the war room of the Heritage. They break it down by each policy sector and actually have in-depth analysis. It's pretty impressive just early on as a starting point. I'm not sure he's been fully briefed on that. I think that comment, and even the comment, Tucker gave an interview to Axios talking about names. And I think that's positive because I sit there and go, look at the quality of people that want to be associated with President Trump. Look at the quality of organizations like Heritage and CRA and the level of depth they're doing. I think it's a positive thing. And I think
I do too.
I think the more you put those policies out, the more it attracts people. We're not trying to play hide the football here. President Trump's very upfront. I'm not sure he's been fully briefed on what those are. And that's why I kind of dismiss it as these people are not saying that what the administration's policy is going to be. They're getting people ready with a policy set that's very much in line with MAGA and America First. So I think this is the most significant development we've had kind of post Trump's, the stolen election of 2020, and now where we are and going into 2024. I think it's the most positive thing I've seen of everything. And obviously President Trump's leading and some great stuff in the campaign, but this shows you that there'll be a real angle of attack when we get back to the White House.
Yeah, I agree. I think people don't fully appreciate what you walk into on day one, and having a bunch of people walk out and say to you, okay, this policy is fully developed. This policy is fully developed. Here are 100 people that are willing to help you to be part of your army and to salute and say yes. You don't have to hire them. You don't have to hire every one of them, but just know that they've been vetted and that their support of your agenda is crucial to executing on that agenda.
Well, let's go back. Look, you come out of the Pentagon. Let's just think the Obama tried to do the pivot to Asia. I mean, we were very open in this in the transition. He tried to get out of CENTCOM and pivot to Asia. They were able to forward deploy one Marine brigade to Darwin, right? That was the pivot. Now, a lot of that's because Joe Biden and Xi were cutting deals, but President Trump really wanted to make the center of gravity really this confrontation with the CCP in the South China Sea, around Taiwan, that we're going to have the free navigation. You realize how complicated that is. The Pentagon is such a vast bureaucracy, right? And I'm not saying these people are ill-intentioned. It's just so massive. It's like turning around 20 aircraft carriers. So you have to have people that go in. Obama failed. He was up front. He failed to do the pivot of Asia because the Pentagon for 20, 25 years was so CENTCOM-centric, right? So Middle East-centric. And that, and that's just one example. Don't even talk about Treasury or DOJ or the intelligence services or particularly the financial and economics. So no, we have our work cut out for us. And here's the thing I fear is that we're so far off track as a country on the economy, on capital markets. The Trump tax cuts come back due the first month he's there. The 2025, whoever steps in there, right, President Trump or someone else, it's going to be just a firestorm for whoever is the next president.
I mean, let's just stop right there for a second. You said President Trump or someone else. Look at the political landscape as you see it right now. I mean, here's how I see this. If you don't beat President Trump in Iowa in the primary right now, then it's over. I mean, I've said this before. He rolls through this thing. It's over. And then in the general, obviously, we got to play that out. We can talk about that later. But I mean, he's leading in the battleground states. So do you, just to be clear, when you say that, do you see anybody right now in the field, in the primary field, that could possibly beat Trump?
No, impossible.
Yeah, okay.
But the only thing I differ, I think DeSantis ends in New Hampshire, in Iowa. I think the big battle this time is going to come in New Hampshire. I think you're seeing all the forces coming back.
So play this out, because the way I look at this is DeSantis is all in Iowa. I've asked him, but he says, I have to win Iowa. Right now, he's not going to win Iowa. So it's over there. We saw Governor Sununu endorse Nikki Haley. So it's Christie and Haley in New Hampshire. So just tell me, like, I see this as DeSantis and everyone else is out in Iowa. Haley lives to play another day, assuming she doesn't get embarrassed in Iowa. And then it's Haley and Christie in New Hampshire who lose there. Trump then it's over, going into South Carolina where he would steamroll everybody. Tell me, do you see any different scenario than what I just laid out?
No, I think that all the donors come together and try to have some sort of Pat Buchanan type showing for her in New Hampshire. This shows that this alternative to Trump has some life force to it. I don't think that happened. My fear with Nikki Haley is that the donors will give her enough money to stay in through South Carolina, maybe Super Tuesday, to make the argument that she really finished second and deserves to be VP. And as you know, becoming Trump's VP can cause a lot of havoc in the White House and get back to the same non-America first, the same neoliberal, neocon policies that Nikki Haley represents. I think she's running right now, and the donors are putting money in, not for any chance to defeat Trump, which I think is impossible, remote to impossible, but to hang in there and make the case that she's the 15% of the party or the 17% of the party that are registered voters and Republicans that are not Donald Trump fans. And that's what I say. I don't see him getting defeated by anyone, particularly Joe Biden. But I think that whole thing's up in the air. Who knows if Biden's going to be there? What's going to happen to Kamala Harris? You've got Whitmer. You've got Newsom. Having no convening authority on the Democratic side, since the Democratic Party officially DNC is not very powerful. I don't know how they remove Biden, but I think these numbers, and particularly the crosstabs with youth, with African American men, Hispanic men, are bad and just getting worse
100%.
every week. I just don't know how they continue to buy into this thing by the spring, that they don't try to somehow make some deal with him. So I think it's
I think something could happen to him health wise. Do you think that Biden is the nominee of the party though?
I just can't see it, but I don't know how they have a mechanism to get him out. I call it convening authority. There's no, to take Al Gore's term, there's no apparatus. The DNC has been so eviscerated, right? Because the DNC and RNC are two different things. The DNC has been so eviscerated. And there's no group of wise men. There's a huge, trust me, they're polling and talking about it nonstop. They're totally freaked out. That's why they're putting up this narrative of Trump as anti-democratic, because I think they view that if Trump does win, they want to go back to 17 and another nullification project where they make it impossible for him to try to govern.